We did. Make sure you can't retain the shirt before the parade.
Yeah, you can if you like. Okay.
I have a blue one. I was looking for a red one.
Yeah.
It's tired.
Yeah.
Sleeping in his bed.
Or I might have taken it out.
Good morning and welcome to the Berry County Committee of the Whole for November 21st, 2023. Please stand for our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Limited public comment at this time. Anybody wishing to address the board may do so for up to 3 minutes.
Good morning, Rick Moore, Irving Township, originally called the Outlaw Township because we all have guns. Anyway, I was at the original park, Charlton Park, commissioners meeting 10 years ago or so, when it was only county commissioners, drain commissioners, and road commissioners, and one citizen. At that meeting, they were informed that the Thornapple Trail Association, which I have been a founding board member, always a volunteer coordinator, and currently the chairman, that we had gifted the Charlton Park Board our trail. They declined. They said they would make it a user fee system in which there would be police at every intersection charging children to use the trail. Well, that didn't go over well with me because I'm a very passionate volunteer, as everybody in this room knows, and that we told the board that we needed to have more events out there. This original commissioner said, and because I quit drinking 52 years ago, I remember all this stuff, they said, no, we don't want more events because we'll have to hire somebody to pick up cigarette butts. And we'll have to paint the buildings more often if we have more people. Well, that was outrageous. That commission was told that they would be eliminated. I never saw so many adults crying all at once. The only person that didn't was Mrs. Kidder, Judith Kidder. She was the only one on that board that continued to volunteer for Charlton Park for the rest of her life, which is quite a few years. She impressed me. She was my inspiration to continue to work no matter how bad things got. Well, we formed two separate park boards because of that, because Charlton Park Board had a budget. The Parks and Rec Board did not. So we formed two park boards with me as the chairman of the Parks and Rec Board. And after term limits ran out, I became vice chairman. After the political crap, became so intense, I just decided not to accept another endorsement and just to continue to volunteer. Because I love to volunteer because it benefits me as well as others. And so I continued to do that. Later, when the political stuff started going on at Charlton Park, because I was a crossover member, so both park boards knew exactly what was going on with each other, they started to quit. And so I became the chairman of the Charlton Park Board, and things went well. And then vice chairman of the Charlton
Can you
Park
summarize
Board.
your comments, please?
Things went well. And this new park commission is continuing to do very wonderfully. We're working very well together, and I hope we continue this way because both park boards in the past tried to work together. This park board is working excellently together, and I hope that we continue that. And I tried to keep this all within 3 minutes, but I talked too long. So thank you very much for your courtesy. And please, use your outdoor voice and don't talk like this, because we can't hear you, and I'd love to hear your comments. Thank you very much.
Additional public comment? Hearing none, we will move ahead with our agenda. Interviews, Community Correction Advisory Board. We have 2 candidates to interview. Is Cynthia Norton here this morning?
Yes.
Good morning, Cynthia.
Good morning.
Thanks for coming out on such a beautiful day.
Thank you. I'm not used to it yet.
Yeah.
If you would, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Your background and why you see yourself being a good fit for community corrections.
Well, I just moved back here to Michigan. I am originally from Michigan. I moved back from Arizona. I worked in the Department of Corrections in Arizona for 25 years. Part of that 25 years was in community corrections. I was a corrections officer. I was a parole officer, community corrections officer. I worked with the seriously mentally ill, so I had a special caseload. I was one of the only people who worked that specific caseload in order to show that we actually needed a complete unit with 6 officers to work that type of clientele. I believe that being able to assist another person with the differences and issues that they have compared to the rest of us, it gives them a level playing ground so that they can continue on with their lives without any issues. Encompassing the community, the police departments, along with the mental health people and corrections. I think when you have a full team, you're able to give more to that person who needs that assistance. Community corrections is a behavioral modification for offenders. We opened up facilities that were where we were able to do intense rehabilitation with those offenders when they were slipping, when they were falling back into their old ways, and working hand in hand with counseling and time limits to be able to go places and do things, assisting them. That was something I believed in. I believed that I could give them every opportunity for change if they chose to take that opportunity. I believe in community corrections, and I worked, like I said, 25 years in it, and I'm still looking at being able to participate with that.
Awesome, I appreciate that. Commissioner Smelker, you sit on Community Corrections Advisory Boards, if you would like to start us out.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your application. You have an abundance of experience. And I see here that you have 41 years.
Yes, sir, approximately 41 years. I worked in the state of Michigan in corrections back in the late 70s, early 80s, and then I went out to Arizona. I also worked in the state of Washington.
Okay. Have you attended any meetings in Berry County of the Community Corrections?
I have not. I recently moved here to Hastings 3 months ago.
Okay. That's all I have.
Okay. Commissioner Getty?
I don't have any questions, but I'm really impressed with
your experience and what you could bring to this board, you know, particularly the mental health experience that you have, paired with your corrections experience. I think we'd be happy to have you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Calton.
I have no questions.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Doster.
I have no questions.
Thank you.
Commissioner Tunison.
You got a great resume there and
Thank you, sir.
for what this job would entail. So I really think you'd be a good fit on a board to bring your insight of your life experiences and what it brings. So great quality. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Campbell.
Well, just to be a copycat, yes, you have some serious good qualifications. I guess the only question I would have is, why did you move from Arizona to Michigan? Not that I'm not glad you did.
It truly was not by choice. I take care of my sister who's differently abled, and I
Okay.
need family assistance.
Well, that's a good explanation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hatfield.
Thank you very much for applying. It's an impressive background and certainly very applicable to the board that you've applied for. Have you had experience sitting on other advisory boards for any of the communities you've lived in?
No, sir. I've always been boots on the ground.
And I'm sure busy, so.
Yes, sir.
Again, thank you very much for applying.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Cynthia, you mentioned an interesting word, and that is behavior. 41 years of experience is a lot. You've probably seen a lot of trial and error programs come through, state level type things like that. Have you seen things that have worked, that have been successful in corrections and working with people that we're trying to rehabilitate back into society and changing that behavior?
Yes, sir. Behavior modification programs that the Department of Corrections in Arizona, their community corrections has implemented several years ago, and it's giving us a higher rate of success. And it includes having like a job fair with other employers coming in and actually explaining to the offender what they have to offer the offender with a living wage. Being able to have resources out in the community for them makes a difference. I think that if you'd like, at some point in time, I could put together some information on exactly what it is that we did out there so that you guys could look at it and evaluate whether you think it is something that would work here.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And any numbers that you can share on recidivism and how successful those programs were?
The numbers I don't have offhand,
Okay.
so.
No. Nope, that's a wealth of experience. It seems like that would be a good fit for you, and be careful with that experience. We could use you in a lot of places here, so, but good luck with your first winter here in Michigan. We'll make a decision later on in the meeting, and we'll be in contact shortly. You can stay for the meeting if you like, or you can go back out in that beautiful rain, whatever you prefer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you,
Have a great
everyone,
day.
for your time.
Yep. Gary White. Good morning, Gary.
Morning.
Same thing, if you'd like to give us a little bit of background on yourself and why you see yourself being a good fit for community corrections.
35-year resident, taxpayer, and homeowner of Berry County. I've served as former village president, former village trustee, member of police committee, parks committee, finance committee, zoning board of appeals, 4-H leader, hunter safety instructor, and other boards and things in the area. Retired at GM, from GM, and also ran a business in here. I've taken a look at the makeup of the Community Corrections Advisory Board, and I see that there's judges on there, the police, chief and probation, Pug County prosecutor, sheriff's on there, and then you have some people from the community. When I looked at, public at large filling, I think you look at, and they're asking at this point in time when I looked it up, for somebody other than that are in those positions to serve on this board to make it more diversified. So this is something you'll have to look at. When you look at what the community wants as compared to what the needs are of just the justice system. So I said I see the things that are happening at the state and the federal level, and I understand the diverted felons program is for minor nonviolent felonies. So I said there's going to be a huge taking, but you still need the input from public in general, and not just somebody that, because when but I said, how do you do that? How do you say that? The general public is a position that you're looking to fill.
Thank you. Commissioner Smoker?
Gary, have you had a chance to attend any meetings or to talk to our director?
I have talked to your director, Tammy Price. I haven't attended meetings. I understand right now they're quarterly. The programs are in place that they're using right now. And then when I looked at, to see when their meetings are, they're called. At the last meeting you had, it was about funding because of how the Department of Corrections has put paperwork in front of really getting things accomplished. So I think is the way I would look at that one.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Getty?
I don't have any questions.
Commissioner Colton?
Well, knowing Gary, I know you're going to be passionate, have good attendance, and I do want to see more representation from Nashville or even my part of the county. I do want to ask, what do you hope to, is there any specific thing you hope to achieve on community corrections?
To achieve, it's really looking at the programs that they have, looking at the new laws coming in, because right now and you got to look at the funding of it. How is the state funding going? Because the funding, from what I see, it comes from the state to keep people out of the prison system. So you got to look at the whole aspect of it. The programs are important. The people, are they returned or how that works? So do I have any specific goals for this? No, it would be learning what's in there at this point in time and giving input from being a community member, not from the judicial or things like that. So, and I think that's what the position is asking for.
Thank you.
Commissioner Dodd?
I have no questions.
Commissioner Tunison?
So that's why you think he'd be a good fit for this board, as far as life experiences and what you bring to the table as a community member.
Yeah, as I said, when you're looking at the public at large, and it's said differently, general public for the position to fill, you're looking for somebody that has been in the area and doesn't necessarily fit. I appreciate, honestly, Cynthia Norton's experience. Does she have a great wealth of knowledge and stuff there? Do they need to draw from her? But then you also need to draw from the public to look at what the public thinks of what's going on there, if that makes sense.
I'm good.
Commissioner Campbell?
Morning, Gary.
Morning.
Nice to see you here this morning.
I attend.
And I agree with Commissioner Colton that we need more people like Gary White to be involved with everything that goes on in our government, even if we always are not in agreement. Be a crazy world if we were.
We do butt heads.
But the fact that you are always out there representing people and everything means a lot to me as a commissioner. Over the past, these applications and different appointments we made, I think today is going to be probably my most difficult one today. It's both candidates are more than qualified to do this job. So I just want to say I appreciate it, and I want to throw in too that Gary was the instructor for both my daughters, and they have never had a ticket. So thank you, Gary.
Commissioner Hatfield?
No questions. Thank you, Gary. Appreciate your interest in it.
I have no questions either. I thank you for your interview.
That it then?
Yep.
All right.
We will.
I got other things that appointments today, so I probably won't be around much longer.
Okay. Thank you, Gary.
Thanks, Gary.
Next up, interviews for Commission on Aging Board. We have 3 positions available and 3 candidates to interview. Is Michelle Dietz? Dietz. Could go a lot of different ways with that spelling, so you know.
Yeah, I've heard them all.
I bet you have. Good morning, Michelle. If you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you see yourself being a good fit for Commission on Aging.
Yes, I am a lifelong resident of Berry County. I went through the school system here. I worked all my life here. I was at Hastings Mutual for 18 years. I was 15 years at Home and Insurance Agency as a co-owner, agent. At that time, I started working within the community on different boards involved with the community. Currently, I am on the Third National Arts Council Board, Leadership Berry County Board, Pure Cedar Creek Institute Fund Development Council, Berry County United Way Board of Directors, and Middle Lake Association. I've held numerous positions within those boards. I'm the immediate past president for the Arts Council and Leadership Berry County. I'm the current chairman of the Fund Development Council at Pierce, and the current president of the Middle Lake Association. I was involved with the bond proposal for Hastings area schools that passed, where we now have our beautiful Performing Arts Center. So I've been involved in many of those things around the community. So.
Very busy, very involved.
Very busy, very involved, but well worth it.
Absolutely. Commissioner Colton, you represent the commission on that board. Would you like to start?
Absolutely. Does this start immediately, Michael? Oh, in January? Okay. Fantastic. I really look forward to working with you on the board. All I have to say.
Okay. Commissioner Doster?
No questions.
Okay. Commissioner Tunison?
Michelle, I want to thank you for all you're giving back. I think you come by it honestly with your parents taught you. So, and she had some great parents, and her mother still being with us. But you're be a great fit for that COA board because of your vision. You got forward thinking, and you're really behind the new COA building, and
Yes.
and which would greatly benefit the community. So I think you'd be a great ambassador for that on the board and working with the board. So thank you.
Commissioner Campbell?
Good morning.
Good morning.
You do have lots of activities going on.
I do.
But you feel confident that this one will still fit into that busy schedule, and
That's my philosophy, that if you're gonna take the time to be on a board, you need to take the time to be on a board and do all the committee work, all the activities associated with it, be a community liaison between the Commission on Aging or the United Way, Arts Council, any of those. You need to speak highly of that organization and what it brings to the community. You know, all of those entities work together, and I feel that the Commission on Aging is a part of that piece that helps, obviously, our seniors. A lot of the other ones that I'm on may not necessarily fit to help them, but this one definitely does. My mother is, of course, older. She participates with Meals on Wheels. I worked with the Commission on Aging after I retired pre-COVID, doing I was the community liaison for the caregiver support group for people with Alzheimer's and dementia. So I really believe in the Commission on Aging and their mission and what they are trying to accomplish.
it looks like you would be an excellent fit for that. And the Commission on Aging is moving on up right now, and it's looking good, and get that place ready for me.
Yeah. Well, I just feel that this is a great opportunity to maybe come in with some leadership on the board. And I know that there's a millage coming up, a renewal of that millage. You've got a capital campaign coming up. That's a big undertaking, and I feel that on your board, you need some strong leadership, and I hope that I can bring that to the board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hatfield.
Thank you. I have no questions, but I have been very fortunate to work with Michelle on any number of different initiatives in the community, and can certainly attest to her effectiveness and strong participation in anything she takes on. So, and I was talking with Courtney before the meeting about the fundraising initiative, and certainly I'm particularly happy to hear of your interest in that and willingness to help, because that's going to be a very important activity for and focus for COA over the coming year. So thank you very much for your interest, not only in this, but everything else you do. You're a true asset to the community.
Thank you.
Commissioner Smelker.
Michelle, I
Yes.
see on your resume that you may have a conflict.
I do, and I actually have a second one that I need to tell you about. But yes, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
As many boards and activities you're on, I'm sure this is not the first time this may come up.
Right.
How do you handle that?
I simply recognize when there is a conflict, and if it comes to a vote where that conflict is apparent, then I abstain from that vote. I do not vote. When it comes to talking about some of the significance of that, it maybe might give me a perspective different from what the other people have. So that's how I deal with that. My husband, since I filled out the application, has now become an employee at the Commission on Aging. He is a Meals on Wheels driver, part-time, and is certainly enjoying that. So,
Thank you.
does that answer your question?
Yes, that was the answer I wanted
Okay.
to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Getty.
Thanks, Michelle, for being willing to serve on additional things. My personal experience, I echo what's been said before me, but not just your leadership, but you're willing to get your hands dirty and do the work on the ground. So you're not one that just shows up for board meetings. I know this from experience. You roll up your sleeves and you get to work, which is so valuable.
Thank you.
I thank you for your application. I really am impressed with the resume, especially the fact that you're a Lake Association president tells me you are a real glutton for punishment. So, so you are involved from top to bottom on everything you can do. So, but no, we appreciate your willingness to lead. The COA is obviously at a critical point where we're turning the corner, thinking about rebranding, thinking about the future, the building, how it all fits in there. So we need some vision in that as well, and hopefully you can be an asset to that as, the COA board as well. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome to stay for the meeting if you'd like. Otherwise, if you have other appointments, you can go as well. So
I think I'll stay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Emily Gary. Good morning, Emily.
Good morning.
If you
Good
tell
morning.
us,
Thank you for having
if
me.
you would tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely.
And why you'd see yourself being a good fit for the Commission on Aging Board.
So I live in Barry County. My husband, my two children, and that who are Thornapple Kellogg students. I also live with my elderly mother-in-law. I work for Michigan Works. I've worked with Michigan Works for about 17 years in most of the capacities in that organization. What spurred me to apply to the COA board was that we've seen two things. One is personal, one is professional. We've seen an increase in senior citizens needing more assistance, needing employment to subsidize their retirement funds. And I see that there is a bigger need in Barry County than there ever was before, especially with the rise in all of the costs associated with living. So I'm hoping that as part of my experience working with Michigan Works, I can bring some of the services and the resources that we have at Michigan Works to the seniors that are in Berry County. They desperately need it, but I don't think they know really how to engage in it. The other personal part of it is I have my two parents. They used to live in Berry County, and they loved the COA. They love the services of the COA. They moved to another county. I won't say which one, but it's directly west of us. And the services are not as robust, and they're not as easily to connect to. And for that reason, one of those big reasons is my parents are moving back to Berry County, so that specifically as part of their care plan is that they are going to use COA services, and those are the services that are going to help fill those gaps. So I am applying to the COA board so that I can be a part of making the COA a bit more robust and just supporting Courtney, the staff, the other board members, and the community wherever they need to be supported for the senior living.
Awesome, thank you. Commissioner Colton?
You caught my ear with talking about seniors needing to supplement their incomes, because I know with Social Security, it's really not that much money for a lot of people. It's not a living wage. And, you know, I see certain seniors out there working, but it almost seems like that business has to do something special to allow them to work there. You know, what sort of job development, you know, I don't see a lot of where they're working. What sort of job development is really helping out with people with that kind of experience?
Good question. Well, the first thing is that when there is a gap in employment, it's very difficult to get back into the game. So having those tools like a resume, cover letter, and knowing how to apply in this day and age is very different than how when I started working at Michigan Works. So providing them the tools is important, but then also being an advocate to the employer. So we have a business solutions person who specifically talks to employers, and she is advocating where there are gaps. And one of those gaps is we need to start engaging our senior workforce and making space for them and understanding that they have a lot of skills. And so that has happened, and we have some manufacturers who are willing to hire part-time seniors, provide them with some accommodations, so if they need to sit and do the job. So those are the kind of things that we're working on right now.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Doster?
I have no questions.
Commissioner Getty?
I, like Commissioner Colton, you had my attention. I think that this is an area that hasn't been addressed, and you'll provide a unique perspective on the board that, you know, it's one of those aha moments where you didn't even know it was missing. So thank you for being willing to serve.
Commissioner Smelker?
Thank you very much for applying. I believe with your resume, you will be an excellent fit there.
Thank you.
And if you get on and you're on for a while, I ask one favor, is to keep Bruce and I on separate wings.
We'll get you those old phones, the can phones that you guys can string through the hallways.
Yeah, there you go, there you go. Commissioner Hatfield?
Thank you. As with Michelle, I've had a chance to work with you, and certainly have seen you in action and know your commitment and effectiveness, and appreciate your interest in this board. You would be a great addition, so thank you.
Commissioner Campbell? Thank you, John. Morning, Emily.
Good morning.
I really like the talk about having seniors with jobs, even if they're just volunteer jobs. I like that you're making that effort. My mother's 94. She goes to Florida in the wintertime, and last year, Habitat for Humanity asked her if she'd like to come and sit at the door and work at the door, and you thought my mother's whole demeanor, that she had that value. Got a certificate at the end of the year, so just really glad that you're looking in that direction. I think myself, I'll probably retire and be at the other end of the hall from John. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Commissioner Tunison.
Emily, thank you. You're a great asset. You'll be a great asset on that board.
Thank you.
Because I was just talking with somebody the other day about this at FlexFab, and they're hiring people in their 70s to come back and sit in a chair because you know why? They show up every day. Okay, you're hiring the young kids and they're there for a few days and they're gone. They're realizing that the baby boomer generation and the generations before really were the backbone, and these people are still very valuable, and I think it's a great asset that you can help with the COA.
Thank you.
To outreach with that. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I have no questions. Emily and I have worked together on economic development. She's been a good asset, gives great updates, very punctual, always has good attendance. So I know she has board experience, and she's been a good fit on that board, so I think she'd also be an excellent fit with this one as well. So, thank you. We'll make a decision, and we will let you know shortly.
Okay,
Thanks, Emily. And Commissioners, you have one more applicant, and that was Kimberly Miller. She had a health issue and was not able to attend this morning. However, if you remember, we did interview Kimberly, about a month and a half ago, for a different board. So if you take a quick look at her resume, she had 12-plus years of experience with the city of Grand Rapids, led the parking commission, monthly meetings, attended president planning commission meetings for the city, so she's got boards experience, understands Robert's rules, also understands budgeting, spending processes for governmental agencies, good understanding of tax credits and building projects. I have experience as a director of customer service. I'm a certified public accountant. Have led groups from 3 to 200 staff members, also lead or sat on very diverse action and educational groups. So also a very good resume as well. So, but I don't know if any of you guys remember Kimberly, if you have any questions or comments.
No, I remember her. She was be a great applicant for that.
Okay. Okay.
She would fit well.
Okay, we will make a decision on that shortly. Moving ahead, interviews for Solid Waste Oversight Committee. 2 positions available, and we have 2 people to interview. Is Tom Mawson with us this morning? Good morning, Tom.
Good morning.
If you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and why you're interested in solid waste oversight.
Hold the microphone closer.
My wife and I moved here to Berry County in 2016. My wife, her family owned property on Gun Lake, and in 2004 we were able to purchase property on the lake. Never in my life did I think I would spend the last years of my life living on a lake, but here I am.
Mm-hmm.
Moved here from Northern Virginia. I worked in Washington, D.C. for over 40 years, managed a couple of national and international associations, such as the American Society for Civil Engineers and several others anyway. I currently serve on the Board of Zoning Appeals for the township, and I'm one of the founding members of our recycling committee. Northern Virginia, recycling is mandatory. It is not single source. Everybody is provided with single bins for metal, glass, paper, plastic. So it's expected that every household will provide that. When I moved here, it's a whole different world. But I'm passionate about recycling and the fact that we need to keep as many materials out of our landfills as we possibly can. So that was one of the first things I wanted to do, was to get involved with the recycling committee, and really enjoying it. I had my first experience with the community recycling program out at the fairgrounds, and I was overwhelmed at the enthusiasm and the number of people that came and the amount of materials we collected. And so I'm hoping to be able to bring some insight and experience and enthusiasm to the committee.
Excellent. Commissioner Getty, I know you serve on solid waste oversight.
Yeah, I appreciate your willingness to serve, especially when you could just be watching sunsets on the lake at this point in your life. And I'm always inspired when folks want to get involved, you know, in retirement. They could certainly be doing other things. Tom has been in attendance for several board meetings already. I think you'll bring a great organizational perspective to the board and professionalism, and we just appreciate the work you've done so far. And as a Yankee Springs resident, I thank you for your work there as well.
Thanks.
Awesome. Commissioner Hatfield.
I can only echo everything that was just said. It's been nice to get to know you at the committee meetings, but your passion for it has been evident, and you've been very involved with the Yankee Springs initiative in addition to the collection event. So you demonstrated your interest and willingness to roll up your sleeves and get involved. So thank you for applying for this.
Thanks.
Commissioner Campbell.
Good morning, Tom.
Good morning.
I'm a recycling advocate, so I'm very happy that you are in that direction, and I think we have a long ways to go to get to that point, but I think recycling, if we're going to keep Mother Nature around, it's going to take recycling. I appreciate you being here, Tom.
Thanks.
Commissioner Tunison.
Appreciate your involvement. Are they still doing that in the Yankee Springs where they go around in the spring and go around all the trails and pick up all the trash
Yes,
everybody
we did.
dumps out there?
We did it earlier this year, yes.
Yeah, how many dumpsters or how many, because I know at one time they were picking up all kinds of crap out there, tires and
Yeah,
everything else that people
I don't know the
dump
answer
off.
to that because I was spending my time at the township offices with Mike Cunningham, our clerk, because we were interviewing people and picking up items around there and working with people at the township. So I wasn't out on the trails.
Yeah, it's amazing to me the lack of respect of people when they dropping all that stuff out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there
but I
were
really-
tires everywhere.
I know like recently Hastings Charter Township, they had a recycling bin out there. And when Les they would literally separate it, it'd be cardboard, glass. And Les's would come and actually pick it up and handle it. But now that you've gone to Granger, they won't. So it's a service that was really helping the whole township, but all kinds of people came there. You got any ideas on how we can actually get these companies to actually want to do this in Berry County?
I wish I knew the answer to that. When we first started the recycling committee, one of the first things we did is go to each of the different townships to see what they had in place, what they were currently doing, so we could evaluate where we were. The second thing we did was evaluate all of the providers right now, the haulers. And there is no hauler that covers all of our township. There's certainly no hauler that covers all of Berry County. And one of the biggest problems is there are so many small roads, very small roads around the lakes that the haulers don't want to bring in their big trucks because they can't back them back out again. I don't know how we get around that. It has been a challenge to try and get more information. 3 times a year, we spend time at our recycling facility there at the township, interviewing people when they come in to find out what they are recycling, if they have any questions, what more can we do. And it has been enlightening to hear that. We're very fortunate that very, very few people, 1 out of 20, comes from outside of our township, but people are hearing about it. We have a terrific recycling facility there. It's very clean and very manageable. I might add that earlier this year, we did a mailing. Excuse me, I'm getting over a case of bronchitis, so I'm kind of losing my voice. We went to Eagle and got a grant to do a mailing of postcards to everybody in our township to encourage them to answer any questions they might have about recycling. And between, I think, a grant that we got also from the commission and from Eagle, and then it ended up costing the township nothing, but we got out over 3,000 mailers. And so I'm proud of that.
So how does yours work at Yankee Springs versus other ones? Who's your provider, and do you guys have to separate it and everything else, or?
No.
How does this work?
No, we have single source. We have single source for plastic, paper, cardboard, and glass. We have a separate bin for metal, and then we have a paper gator for the paper. We make money on the paper gator. We make money on the metal that is returned, goes to Padnos. And then we pay, I think it's $70 per load to take it to the recycling center. So we pay for that. Our budget is a little over $40,000 for recycling in the township.
Interesting. Thank you. Commissioner Doster?
I have no questions.
Commissioner Carlton?
Were you at, over at the Berry Expo, the one that was a couple of months ago with the tires?
Yes.
Yeah, I was there. That was amazing. I saw Catherine there too. And,
Is your mic on?
yeah. It's on. I'll just get closer. But, yeah, that was fantastic. Tell me what a paper gator is.
All I know is it collects newspaper, loose paper, and then they pick it up. They have a special truck that picks that up. It's just a separate bin just for paper. One of the misconceptions, I might add, if there's anybody here that might have a question, things like cereal boxes, that type of packaging is considered paper, not cardboard. So it can go into a paper gator. And we get, like I said, we get paid for the weight that goes into that paper gator.
I know I was, when I was in the Nashville Transfer Recycle Board, I remember we could make money on metal, definitely. And so we had that big metal pile there. We made money on that. And for, temporary time, it seemed like cardboard was up. But I'm not sure it's up now. So you said you could make money on the paper gator?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and so what were the other things you could make money on?
Just the metal.
Metal and the paper gator?
Right.
Okay, well, you sound like you'd be fantastic, so definitely have my support. Thank you for applying.
Thank you.
Commissioner Smelker?
No questions. Thank you very much for applying your expertise.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I don't have any questions either. I appreciate the fact that you've attended some meetings, that you're connected to that group, and you have a wealth of experience. Hopefully you can connect that with some of our recycling with Rachel France and our team here locally, so. Thank you, Tom. We'll make a decision, and we will get back with you soon.
Thanks.
Yep. Next up, William Nelson. Good morning.
Good morning.
William or Bill or all the
Bill
above?
is more
Okay.
common.
Okay, thank you, Bill. If you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you see yourself being a good fit for solid waste oversight.
Well, I've got local government experience all my life. I've worked for and with local governments, starting out with the city of Kalamazoo after I graduated from engineering school. And the last 9 years there, I was the public works manager and city engineer. During that time frame, the city of Kalamazoo began and implemented their first residential recycling program, which I was responsible for the administration and operation of. We also implemented a monthly solid waste collection program, which we performed and administered also. So I have significant experience in solid waste and recycling, and I have an interest in those areas. While I was at the city, I was also on our city rep to the county solid waste management planning committee for Kalamazoo County back then. It was in the 80s. That was an enjoyable experience of trying to develop those first solid waste management plans. Memory tells me about, we had 11 public hearings on landfill sites in 10 days. So it was a long, hard experience. Didn't seem to be a lot of support out there for any of them, which is natural. I also understand that the state is now requiring a new solid waste handling plan from every county, so I felt I might have some experience in helping this county develop their new plan. After City Kalamazoo, I went to Allegan County as their County Road Commission manager. And so I have a lot of experience of working with multiple townships on whatever their issues may be, whether it be funding or others. And we were very fortunate in Allegan County to have a lot of cooperation between townships, and many of them provided a lot of funding for local road improvements. So one big part of my job that I enjoyed was being able to explain to people why we couldn't or could do what they were wanting to have done. It was an important part of the job that they understand why we can or can't do what they want to have done. So I've enjoyed working for local governments, and I have a lot of experience of working with local governments.
Awesome, thank you. Commissioner Getty.
I think we're lucky to have two applicants with so much experience that they'll bring to the board. You'll bring that government experience, and I think will be a really valuable member of the board. So thanks for being willing to serve.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hatfield.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. While I don't think we ever crossed paths, I also am a longtime resident of Kalamazoo, and certainly know you by reputation through many of my activities down there, and can speak to your effectiveness and the high regard that you were held in down there. So glad you're bringing that up here to us.
Thank you. I lived in Gunplain Township for 41 years. I purchased a farm here in Berry County 35 years ago. And after retiring, I built a home over here on that land 7 years ago. So I'm a 7-year resident, but 35-year taxpayer for Berry County.
There you go. Yes, sir. Commissioner Campbell.
Thank you for that 35 years.
Helping pay for Bruce's room.
Very nice to have you here, Bill, and I'm overwhelmed with the idea that we have such great candidates today for solid waste, and I can see you're right on top of the recycle thing too, so.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here, appreciate it, Bill.
Yep. Commissioner Tunison.
Thanks for applying, Bill. I think there's so much growth potential for recycling, and especially in Berry County. I mean, and I know certain, like Jim Brown, very passionate about it at our township, and frustrated with the fact that we can't get it going back out there again. But I'm sure you can bring something to the table to try to bring these townships together and try to figure out a way. Maybe we can start doing this more collaboratively, you know?
I would hope we could, yes.
You know what I mean? Versus Yankee Springs. Obviously, it's successful in Yankee Springs. Why can't we get it going everywhere, right?
I agree. There's got to be a way of getting greater participation.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Commissioner Doster.
I'm glad to see a candidate from Prairieville Township.
Commissioner Colton.
I have no questions. Thanks for applying.
Commissioner Smelker.
I have no questions. Thank you very much for applying.
Okay.
Yep. You are correct, Bill. They are, well, I was on that board last year, and they're working on it. We've heard the rumors of the material management plan for the state. Quite an undertaking to go through. Time, expense, and your expertise would be appreciated to lending some of that help to us. I think you'd be a good fit for that board. So I appreciate your time today and your willingness to serve. Thank you.
You bet.
We'll make a decision to get back with you in a little bit. Next up, Andrew Hartwick. Fiscal year 2024 remonumentation grant application.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. As you mentioned, I am here for permission to apply for the 2024 remonumentation grant application and to enter into the state agreement on behalf of the county when that is delivered. This year, we had a very good year this year. It was $62,639 allocated to us, but next year, for 2024, is $52,498, which is a deficit of $10,141. So we're running a little shy for next year, but we're going to have another great program.
Okay. When they cut the program by 10,000, what does that mean for remonumentation?
It means less corners. That's really, on an annual basis, which is all of this money is from recording fees that come from the prior years, and I believe it's a 2-year step.
Okay.
So if the recording fees are up for the prior years, we get more money coming to us in that time, or if it goes down, conversely, it goes down. So we're looking at probably somewhere around 10 less corners this year, or for next year, I should say. There's 44 corners this year, and I think when I put together the draft, I think we were rather overly ambitious by putting 40. I expect probably around 35 or so, give or take. Usually we budget for, well, I think we're going to budget for 33 when it comes to it, but there's always some that we end up getting for minimal cost. Call them.
Easy to find.
Yes, and sometimes,
Hopefully.
Well, they call them walk-in corners, so it's something that has already been worked on, and it's just brought in and it's brought to the peer review and put a stamp on it and record it and send it to the state.
Perfect. Questions from commissioners?
Do you see a time when all the corners will be completed, at least the first round of them?
I think when we talked about this last year.
Yes, we did.
I think it was about 10 years, give or take, but that was with the caveat of as long as the money flows. And of course, as time goes on, the allocations from the Register of Deeds doesn't go up in terms of how much comes off of the recording fees, but obviously there is a adjustment going forward in the future for inflation, things like that. So I would hope that in the next 10 to 15 years that the first part one, I believe, is the primary portion of it would be completed. That's my hope.
You do the corners of each square mile?
Yep. And it depends, because it's not just a straight, there's technically 9 corners per every section throughout the county, but some of them there are shared and some are not. So if you're like on a township line, you'll actually have 2 corners within sometimes 10 feet, sometimes 50 feet of each other. So when you go from one township to another township, if you're driving along a road, you have that little jog that goes in between. That's actually.
I know that quite well.
Okay,
actually.
all right, okay. Yeah. So it's, and it is every corner.
So it's a quarter section corner then, if there's 9, right? And one in the center.
4 corners, 4 quarters in the center.
Okay.
Yep.
Interesting. Commissioner Colton?
This is more informational question. I always wondered about that. When you go to another township, there'll be a slight jog. And someone once told me, and is this true or not, because some people put me on, I think, that it's because as you go north, the world kind of gets shrinky till you get to the North Pole.
Well, it does do that. I mean, in terms of like, on that spherical measuring. And I'm not a surveyor, so you can't hold me to this. But what I believe is how when they started doing the townships, they trace out the outside of it, and they have like a prescribed way of going around the township, and then they slowly go back and fill in all of the corners. So it leaves 2 sides of the township, which they call closing sides, and that's where they weave out, they kind of make the adjustments necessary to make up the difference as they've gone around. Because when you map it, it's a 2-dimensional map, and you're trying to put a 3-dimensional world on it. So I'm a map person, I'm a GIS guy, so I always tell people the only perfect square mile is on a map, not in real life. So that's where you get to those closing corners where they kind of, all right, they come back and they're, let's say, 50 foot off. So on this township, it'll be over here. On this township, it'll be over here, but it'll be on the same line. Does that answer your question? Those be on the same line like this, so the kind of, I know that's
Yeah, I don't think so.
I'm not sure.
Yes, good answer.
Okay.
Let's go with the one about the map and this piece of paper. That makes more sense.
Yeah, there you go.
Additional questions? Hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to enter into the 2024 grant agreement with the state of Michigan, LARA, for the continuation of the remonumentation program in Berry County, and authorize the grant administrator to sign the grant application agreement on behalf of Berry County.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Calton, support by Getty, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to enter into the 2024 grant agreement with the state of Michigan for the continuation of the remonumentation program in Berry County, and authorize the grant administrator to sign the grant application and agreement on behalf of Berry County. Additional discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you very much.
Stephanie Lehman, come on down. Resolution to approve the ballot proposal for renewal of the countywide E911 emergency answering and central dispatch system millage.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I am doing well. How are you?
Awesome.
Great. So I am back again. It's about that time. Every year we come back before you to discuss ballot language for the renewal for the 911 operating millage. This year it's not just a straightforward millage. We are also looking to restore back to the original one full mill, which will generate annually about $165,000 in revenue each year. I think it's important for the board to know that that $165,000 will allocate for essentially 2 starting dispatch positions. Like every other industry, I know that we're not an anomaly, but we're an industry that's driven by technology. The amount of technology that we have that's not only funneling through the actual facility at the 911 center, but systems that we have in place that are touching law enforcement that's in the field, fire departments that are in the field, and responding ambulance or EMS units that are in the field. It's a critical part of the work that we do, and those things cost money. So the days of us just answering a handset and talking into a radio was really what the 911 environment was when 911 was set up here in 1992. And the game has changed a lot. And so I don't think that I need to talk to anybody about the rising labor costs, right? COVID changed that for everybody. It changed that for all of us. And so we're definitely seeing that. Definitely feeling that pinch a little bit in public safety, but definitely at 911. And so I'm happy to answer any questions. I did bring some statistical data if anyone is interested in having that information. I can give you current stats, a 5-year comparison, and a 10-year comparison. Just general broad to talk about how much utilization the 911 system is receiving. So every month we generate statistical reports. You probably see them, you get them. There's no confidential information in here. It's just raw data only. And so every month we tally these. And so just through the end of October of this year, just a broad number, we have dispatched 47,269 incidents. Through the end of October of 2022, we had dispatched 44,264. So we're looking at just shy of a 7% increase in volume from where we were at this time last year. If I take that back 5 years to where we were at the end of October of 2018, we had dispatched 40,749 incidents. So we're up just shy of 8,000 incidents from where we were 5 years ago. And if I take it back to the end of October of 2013, we had dispatched 31,131 incidents. So we're looking at a significant increase in the amount of work that we're doing. I also think that it's important for the board to know that up until 2020, we had not changed the staffing model at dispatch at all. And so we were operating with the same original staffing model that came into play in 1992. If you were around then, you know that we did make a major renovation to the dispatch center because we needed to increase the number of seats, the number of dispatch positions or consoles. And when I say console, I'm not just talking about the actual furniture desk that the dispatcher is working off of. I'm talking about everything that it takes to make that console run. In 1992, it was a telephone, it was an actual handset, It was, you know, a radio, a base radio where you're actually picking up a mic or using a foot pedal. And there was one computer at each console, one, maybe two computer screens and then a phone screen. That's definitely different today. We're looking at 6 screens. We're considering migrating to 8. So we have 6 screens and 4 computers at each console. And that's not talking about the networking that it takes, the cabling, and we're not just answering phones and dispatching on radios anymore. We're receiving information from a multitude of from a multitude of platforms. Location data is the primary one that I'll give you. In 1991, when 911 came into inception here in Berry County, everything was a wired line phone. And so when you answered that call, you got the subscriber information, whoever the phone provider was, whoever owned and had that service start, we received that location data. In today's environment, only about 12% of calls that we're receiving are from a wireline phone, and traditionally those are coming from some type of PBX or MLTS, a multi-line telephone system, so there's school systems. You know, we have a large manufacturing community in the county, and so it's some type of business. About 88% of the work that we're doing is cellular. And so when you think of cellular, you're thinking of cell phones, right? But it's not just cell phones anymore. We receive calls off of tablets. We accept text, VoIP, so everything's IP based, right? And that's what VoIP is. It's just a phone line or a phone service provided over the internet. And, you know, about 15 years ago, we really saw a big transition, maybe 10 years ago, from regular hardwired lines moving into VoIP, but now we're seeing cellular lines that are VoIP. So the class of service has changed. The amount of information that we're receiving has changed. So we're not only getting location data from the phone provider who's providing the service. There are a couple of other platforms, integrated solutions that we're using that provide us what we would refer to as enhanced location data. More times than not, when individuals call, they don't know where they are. They're driving down M66 and, you know, we have a cow in the road, or there's a semi in the ditch and we don't know where we are. And so we rely heavily on that location data that we receive from all of those platforms. There are 3 actually that are currently in place. We rely on that to make sure that we're sending the right people to the right location. Oftentimes livelihoods impacted and seconds count. And so we need to do the best that we can to make sure that we know where the folks are at and that we're providing everything that we can for them to get there. In addition to what is happening inside the dispatch center, so the staff and the team that makes it work. It's a relatively small team, 12 dispatchers handle all these calls 365 days a year. And so we up until about, I would say 2019, we were able to make it work with a minimum staffing level of 2. And unfortunately, we've just reached an arena where that's not applicable anymore. Not only is it not good for the mental health of my team, but it's also not great for our community, the quality of the output of the work that we're putting out. And we have an awesome responsibility not only to our community, but also to the public safety community. I mean, we're their first line of defense, their first lifeline and form of assistance for whatever they might need. And so we are vastly in an arena now where we have to have 3 people, a minimum of 3, sometimes 4 or 5, depending upon what's going on in the dispatch center at a time. And that it costs people. It takes people. And just like everybody else is seeing, the days of where we would have 50 to 100 applicants for one open position, we're lucky now if we see 5 to 10.
Interesting. Great information, though. And you said the extra Headley rollback would create roughly $165,000, and that would be enough for 2 dispatcher positions?
Salaries.
Salaries,
Yes.
okay.
Salaries, yes. It'll cover part of the fringes, but not all of it.
Okay.
So.
Questions from commissioners? No questions? No information? It's a very thorough information, reading through the resolution, the ballot language, everything else. It looked like it was very well put together, very well thought out. John, did you want to add anything to that?
No, other than it puts it back up to 1 mil. But the 911 board still can set it lower than that if it necessitates?
So I'm happy to talk about that. So every year we go through the budget process like every other department, every other community. And our budget typically, it fluctuates, it varies a little bit. It kind of swings between about 1.8 million and 2.2 million, depending upon what type of capital projects that we have. You know, I think that we're kind of starting to get out of, and Michael could speak to this, and Matt's probably going to speak to it. You know, when you purchased when you had a capital project and you made a big expenditure, you know, you paid up front, you make your milestone payments, you pay your support and maintenance, and then you have an expectation that that product is going to be in service working for a minimum of 10 years. And unfortunately, that's just not the reality of today's environment. Most contracts now for professional services, support, and maintenance are running about 5 years. They'll guarantee the product for 5 years. And we're really moving away from a climate where you're planning for a capital expenditure and you're purchasing something. Almost everything has gone to subscription-based pricing, which is just horrible when you have to buy one license for 25 people. And so every year we go through the budget process. So that's the swing of the budget between about $400,000 and $500,000, depending upon what we need in terms of capital expenditures. And we have had a long history of not always allocating to take the full amount that we are allotted per the millage. And so this is my 6th year going through, will be my second millage renewal or millage campaign, but my 6th year as the director there. And only out of those 6 years, only 2 of those years have we allocated to take the maximum amount that the millage allows us to take. So if we get into, and I anticipate that as society changes and taxable value changes and all of that stuff, you know, changes, there will be essentially in the future an opportunity for us to decrease the amount of millage that we're taking. But unfortunately, right now we have some pretty large expenditures that are on the horizon in the next couple years, and I need staff. I think it's also important for your board to understand, I got off topic, sorry, I have a dispatcher brain, is that we're not only looking at the operations of what's occurring inside of the 911 center, we have to look at the 911 ecosystem, what that touches. And so that's everything. Police, fire, EMS, sometimes a variety of public works, city, village, DPWs, Berry County Road Commission, MDOT, MEI's office, Red Cross. There's a lot of ancillary services that we are also coordinating a response from. Any mutual aid, if we had any type of large incident or serious incident, not that what we're doing is not serious, but I think that everybody knows where I'm going with that, where we would need mutual aid from surrounding communities at the statewide level or at the federal level, our team would coordinate a majority of that. But if you look at the 911 ecosystem, so all of the patrol vehicles in Berry County, with the exception of the Michigan State Police, those mobile data computers that law enforcement's operating on, that's a function of 911. That's a service that we provide to them, and the broadband connectivity that goes along with that. And so I know that we went to that type of mobile data computer network in 2011. At that time, broadband connectivity cost us between about $20,000 and $25,000 a year. Today, it's about $50,000. It's just shy of $50,000. And so if that were to go away, the ability for us to provide that for law enforcement, basically the law enforcement agencies would be at their own mercy. They would have to find allocations for that independently, and it will cripple their operations. We also provide some additional alerting options for fire and EMS, where they get some different, what we'll call enhanced information. We don't put computers in their vehicles, but they have some software, some programs that they use that they would get enhanced, what we would refer to as CAD information, and an alert that they receive on a cellular device. And so in addition to providing those services, we also provide all the infrastructure that everyone is speaking on, that everyone's communicating on radio-wise. And so I know it's no secret to this board, we're in the process of building 2 800 megahertz communications towers for the bargain price of $5.8 million. We do need 4 more. I just haven't come up with a funding mechanism for those yet. In addition to that, we also provide the 8 VHF sites, and VHF is the sole means of communication for fire and EMS in Berry County. If you remember, we have law enforcement on one technology, and then we have fire and EMS on another. In the right place to be, or in a perfect world, that would be migrated and everybody would be on the same platform for interoperabilities. Most of our surrounding counties have already transitioned to that, us and Ionia County, that are not there yet. But we're working towards that with 800 towers that we're building. And so I think it's important for you to understand that also. These monies also help us to support police, fire, and EMS in the infrastructure that everyone is operating on from a land mobile radio perspective.
Okay. Do you have a campaign to help educate constituents,
I will.
taxpayers in the county?
We will.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I appreciate the update on the towers. When do you foresee, or is there a projected time when they will be operational?
Yep, so right now, we actually have done a little bit of construction in Middleville, so the hole's been dug and the concrete's been poured, but there's no tower standing yet. We will be there probably just after the first of the year in the city of Hastings. The goal is for both towers to be standing and to have system acceptance. System acceptance is the key phrase there because that means a lot of different things. There's going to be a lot of testing and stuff that needs to happen Q4 of '24.
Okay. Q4 of '24. Okay. And while we have you here, do you want to make a plug for Smart 911?
Sure. So Smart 911's not new. We've had it in our community since 2014, and you can type it into a web browser. They, like everyone else, have an app. I know my phone's over there. You can download the app, and it's consumer driven. And so what that means is it's up to you. As much information as you want to share with the 911 facility to help us, to help you ensure a more efficient and effective response of public safety services. A 911 call has to be initiated for us to access that information. And so how it works is the server resides in our networking room. And when your cellular device, home device, your office phone, whatever numbers you build into your profile, and you can build more than one number into your profile, when that number initiates a 911 call, that server says, once our system accepts the 911 call, that server says, oop, we've got a match, and ping, a profile pops up. It's delivered with a 911 call inside the 911 center. It has been great for us with our special needs population here in Berry County, families that have children that are autistic or nonverbal, and that are flight risk, or they're able to get outside. We have a large elderly population, folks that have dementia, Alzheimer's, memory issues. If you have an individual like that in your home or in your family, you can create them their own profile. You can plug them into your profile. That's information that's helpful, very helpful to us to get out into the field when seconds matter. If you have some type of significant medical issue where you have a very specifically designed medical plan by a healthcare professional. I'm going to use an LVAD. It's a left ventricle, essentially transplant type thing. Most people that have LVADs, when they call us, they tell us right away, I have an LVAD. They can tell us more about it than we can tell them. If they can put their plan in their Smart 911 profile, we can make sure that the ambulance has that information. It doesn't cost anything to the citizen. The 911 center pays. We pay to access that information annually. Another thing that's great about it is if you're traveling or you have a secondary home and that community is a Smart 911 community, that profile goes with you. So if you're in Orlando, Florida, and you make a phone call to 911, they're going to receive your profile. If you're in Las Vegas, Nevada, you make a 911 call, they're going to receive your profile. And so it's housed in a cloud. It's storage based in a cloud. It's the Amazon government cloud where most everything that is government related is housed these days. I know that when we talk about the cloud, it's kind of like this abstract thought, right? It's a little bit like daunting to some people. What does that mean? Where does it go? Essentially, it's an off-site storage facility. That's all that it is. Your information is being stored someplace else, just not in your facility. I think I touched on, we can't just look you up. I couldn't just look up Bruce Campbell and your address to see if you have one. You would have to initiate a 911 call from a phone number that you have built into your profile. If you don't have a home phone and you only have cellular devices, which most of us do, and you have children that have cellular devices, I strongly recommend that you create a home profile, put your children in there with their cell phone numbers. We take a number of what we would refer to as abandoned, hang up, or unfounded 911 calls from the school bus, the bus stop, people walking into school, and we have a legal and moral obligation to make sure that we're researching every single one of those calls to ensure that individual, even if it was an accident, doesn't have a need for some type of response from public safety. I can take your whole afternoon sitting up here talking about what,
Right.
sitting about what we do, talking about what we do at 911. I'm pretty long-winded. If you've not had the opportunity to spend some time in the 911 center, I would love the opportunity to show it to you. It's amazing to see how there can be nothing happening, and then all of a sudden, it's, you know, kind of organized chaos that's happening, and the team just does it. We just do it. We just make it work.
I appreciate that information. We've had a Smart 911 profile for quite a while with all my wife and kids and everything, so it works out great. You update it every 6 months. It's just something that if everybody had it, it would make your job a lot easier as well.
Agreed. In texting, we accept and can initiate outbound texts. So if you are ever in a situation where you're unsafe, or you know, it takes a little less cellular power to send a regular text message, not an iMessage or an Apple message, a regular text message, and you don't have great service and you need to contact 911 and you are in Berry County, you just type 911 in the 2 and it will come to us. If for some reason the service is down, doesn't happen often, but like every technology, the service is down, or if you are in a community where text is not available, you will receive a bounce back message that says, text to 911 service is not available, please make a voice call.
Okay. Any other additional questions for Stephanie?
Not a question, but Mr. Chair, we're very fortunate to have this young lady
Thank you.
in that position. So your knowledge is, I commend you on what you do.
Thank
So
you.
thank you.
And she talks fast. She covers a lot of
Yeah.
information.
I
in a
do.
hurry,
Lot of
you know.
ground.
It sounds so slow to me.
So, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners adoption of resolution number 23-26, a resolution to approve the ballot proposal for renewal of countywide E911 emergency answering and central dispatch system.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Hatfield, support by Tunison. To recommend to the Board of Commissioners adoption of resolution 23-26, resolution to approve ballot proposal for renewal of countywide E911 emergency answering and central dispatch system. Additional discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Stephanie. Commissioners, it's 10:21. Let's take a 5 to 7 minute recess and then we will get back together. Finish the rest of our agenda.
If I could control the extra.
I think so.
Good morning.
Morning.
Board is back in session. Committee of the whole is back in session. So, jail security camera installation and security camera server replacement. Go.
Thank you. Just wanted to thank the board for the time to come up and speak to you. Since taking over as director about 3 months ago, we've really, in IT, had a lot of time kind of spent between just daily operations and looking for areas where we need to focus some energy on making improvements or adjustments to tackle a specific problem. This situation with our jail camera project has come up. We have currently within the jail a relationship with a company called Advanced Satellite Communications that provides the camera system for Lieutenant Nevin's corrections officers, and we've encountered some issues with that server. It is at the end of its life, and we have come to a place where we've had a couple of camera outages in the last 3 to 4 months that we've had to address with the company, at which point they pointed out some areas where we could take some temporary steps to kind of stabilize the situation, which we've done, and then with an eye looking towards how do we permanently address the situation, or for the next 5 to 8 years address the situation. We spoke to them about a quote. Do you want to speak?
Sure, I can read that, yeah. So I'll read the agenda request form real quick here. To recommend the board.
Pull that mic over to you.
I'm sorry.
We're kind of splitting the difference there.
To recommend the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached proposal form for Advanced Satellite Communications Incorporated to replace 3 security cameras and the security video storage server at the Berry County Jail. This project involves partnering with Advanced Satellite Communications Incorporated to replace several security cameras as well as existing video storage server at the Berry County Jail. These updates will allow for additional camera coverage and overall increased stability of the Berry County Jail camera system. We are, I believe it's $50,778.25 is what we were quoted from our current camera vendor. So that's what those two. It's yes, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get to that. So it's the server and then a replacement of 3 cameras. It's actually funny that about 8 years to the day, the 15th of December of 2015, I was here with Dave Schinnever talking about the system and the need for a new one. And this current system we are on is what we replaced in early 2016. So all of this stuff is still from that time period. We took the lowest bid, which ended up being the best bid, as in they could convert our 4 or 5 year old cameras at the time to digital, which the other companies couldn't do. And we've replaced every few years we replace cameras as they go bad. So we've had most of these cameras are from 2008, which is about 15 years old. Prior to that, in 2007, we had no recording capabilities at all, which was extremely difficult. We currently now have 73 cameras, and 71 of them are online, as in working. And we're asking to replace those 3 that are down. And then as we continue to lose cameras, we'll pay for those out of our budget as we move forward. Just very important that we don't lose that service. We were down several hours on a couple weekends ago. We lost connectivity for all of them. So we're going blind throughout the facility. In general, it's very important. The camera system we have is very important with the layout we have and the staff that we have. Very labor intensive to walk through. We increased our checks when those cameras are down. There's a lot of people that are on watches that we have on camera 24 hours a day. We lost that capability. So moving forward to replace that is vital, and that's what we're asking.
Okay, so Advanced Satellite Communications, they're our current partner?
Correct.
And so with them being our partner, this isn't something we could just go out and quote from multiple sources?
It would be difficult, yeah. We'd
be talking about transitioning all the cameras, the servers, the whole setup?
That is correct.
Some type of a new system.
Okay. And because we are having the conversation on hopefully a new facility at some point in the near future for the jail, spending money on technology. Is any of this technology transferable to a new facility?
Yes, so there are two pieces really to this. There's the $43,609, which is specifically related to the camera server itself. That is, a portion of that is labor, but the majority of it is the cost of the server itself. And that server can be picked up and moved to a new facility. We would obviously anticipate this server has between a 5 and 7 year lifespan, as the previous one did. Provided that a jail facility was built within that time frame, this would be transferable to that new facility. The closer we get to the end of that 5 to 7 or 8 years, the more likely it is that we have to come back to you and say this server has also, the new server has run its life out. So if we can do something on that sooner, then we are in a spot where Lieutenant Evans' staff would be looking at camera coverage in the new facility based on the needs there, but the underlying server that would run it and be connected to those cameras would be the facility, this one here that's in the proposal before you.
I know cameras aren't the major expense in this equation, so cameras go up and down.
Replacing
so.
a camera too is economically very feasible. Where it starts to get into the processes if you need to replace all the cameras, and as Lieutenant Evans has said, on the current system we have a number of older analog cameras that are converted over to operate over more modern technology. In a new facility, you would start without that legacy cameras. You would have a more modern facility for the camera, or more modern infrastructure for the cameras to operate on entirely, and that would just connect to the new server natively. So,
Okay. Is there a maintenance cost going forward with this, or is that $50,778.25? Is that the expense for labor, installation?
yes, at this time, that is all the costs we're aware of. Any type of a service call where we had to deal with something on an individual basis on the system would be covered out of operations budget, not probably another request.
Okay. Questions from commissioners? Seems pretty straightforward, and it sounds like something we need, that we need to do, so. Okay. The chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached proposal from Advanced Satellite Communications, Inc. to replace 3 security cameras and a security video storage server at the Berry County Jail.
Support.
Motion by Smelker, support by Colton. To recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached proposal from Advanced Satellite Communications, Inc. to replace 3 security cameras and the security video storage server at the Berry County Jail. Additional discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Matt, we have a few things with you this morning, don't we?
Yes, we have 2 other requests before the board today. The first being a information technology managed services agreement for advanced operational support, that's a mouthful, for Trace3, which is an outside vendor that holds the agreement for the state to perform these services. These are additional services that we would contract for them for additional assistance in the event of an outage where we required the assistance of a specialist in a particular area. Our staff in IT really has 4 people involved in it, 1 network administrator, 2 technicians, and myself. Leslie also serves as our office manager and audiovisual guru for the board meetings. So
Yay.
as we deal with all the different assorted requests that come in for just day-to-day operations, we all are kind of forced to wear a lot of different hats. This agreement would offer a couple things to the county, one of which is access to specialists in particular areas. We are dealing with a number of different very detailed technologies, such as Exchange servers, things that run our domain that allow all of our users to connect to the network and share resources. Occasionally we run into a problem or an outage where we require the services of a specialist in that particular field. The county doesn't have those people on staff, so this gives us the opportunity to reach out to that. It offers us some additional redundancy and after-hours support if we run into an outage where one of our agencies, like the Berry County Jail, for example, that doesn't get a day off, they have to run all the time. So if they call us at 2:30 in the morning and there's a problem with one of our services and we have to bring in our team to work on it, and we get to a situation where we need additional assistance, this allows us to reach out to this company and utilize their specialists essentially to resolve this. The agreement would offer us a certain amount of services per month as part of the cost of the $1,150 per month. Over and above that, we would have the ability to utilize their services at a rate that is pre-negotiated in the contract here. Additionally, we'd like to have the contract be reviewed by our legal team to ensure that they are comfortable with that if the board should choose to approve it.
Okay. Have we had anything like this in the past?
No, it's been a situation that was discussed with my predecessor, Dave Chenevere, and Michael previously. One of the things it also offers us is the chance to have some additional technical staff at our disposal should a key member of our team choose to seek employment elsewhere, which is a thing that we've dealt with in the last month. Pretty much everybody in our department has changed roles in one way or another in the last year. So for us, if our network administrator was currently to go seek another job offer somewhere else, we could rely upon Trace3 as an interim service provider in the meantime while we seek to find a new staff member to replace that key role. It offers us some redundancy and allows us to continue to operate with a partner who we would build a relationship with, and they would have a greater understanding of our network and how we operate, rather than trying to find somebody in the instance of that type of a situation developing and then trying to get them on board real quickly to help us out.
And you said that they have the contract with the state at this time?
So yes, they are the provider through the MyDeal program for these type of kind of emergency services. There's any number of MyDeal contracts regarding information technology. They hold the one for this particular area that the state negotiates out through MyDeal.
Okay. Is there an opportunity to talk to other providers, or is this the recommended provider for this type of service?
Yeah, with the MyDeal agreement, this would be the recommended provider. We could certainly reach out and talk to other folks, but they have bid the process out through MyDeal, and they are the lowest bidder at this point through the state agreement. So.
Okay. Is there any local staff, or is this something, again, that's remote access?
Yeah, they are local. Their most local office is Grand Rapids. So we've met with their staff in the past locally, but a lot of the service they would provide, just given the amount of time that they would have to respond to it, would be provided over a connection that we would establish with them remotely. So they do have the ability to send people out here, and initially, probably in the beginning stages, they would send folks out to kind of learn how our operation runs so they can provide operational support to it, but most often we would be dealing with them in a remote fashion.
Sounds like something that's required going forward just to protect, back up, our systems in case there's a critical infrastructure failure or something that needed to be addressed that kind of exceeded what we had the capacity to handle?
Yep, those are really kind of the two methods to approach there. Either we look for a situation like this where we can consult with those folks as we need it, or we would expand our current staffing operation to bring in some of this talent in these areas. And at this point, I think this is probably the way that we get to where we want to go most quickly.
Okay. About 15, 16,000 a year, it looks like. Questions from commissioners?
I think it's necessary.
Okay.
Yeah, it's necessary.
Okay. The chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached Information Technology Management Service Agreement for advanced operational support between Trace3 and Berry County, subject to review and approval by the county's attorney.
So move.
Support Campbell.
Motion by Tunison, support by Campbell, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached Information Technology Management Service Agreement for advanced operational support between Trace3 and Berry County, subject to review and approval by the county's attorney. Additional discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, Matt.
Welcome.
Oh, we got one more, don't we?
I will only darken your door for one more. This agreement here is a proposal to move ahead with a project to migrate our email server from a current 2016 server situation to a 2019 Exchange situation with an online presence. And this is a situation that has been developing for us within the past few months. We have encountered a number of email outages, affected a lot of our users. We have about 265 individuals here that use email through Berry County, whether they are within the core courthouse and courts and law building or people involved with Berry County Transit. Stephanie's folks out at Central Dispatch, our friends at Berry County Road Commission, they are all relying on the county for these services. Right now, our current server has reached the end of its life. This is a proposal that we have to work with, they're again a MyDeal partner, CDWG, who has the MyDeal services for these, or the contract for these migration services. We reached out to a number of different vendors. We spoke both to Trace3 as well as CDWG, and the MyDeal pricing that we were able to find is the best pricing that's available. This was originally part of a capital request that was put before the board for the 2023 budget. Currently, there's $50,000 allocated initially for this portion of the project, but also for offering productivity software to all of our staff. And what we discovered is after the allocation was made, the amount of money needed for the software allocation is more than what we have budgeted. So we've held off on moving forward with the project. And at this point, we would just like to tackle the email server side of the project. So what CDWG would do is help us come in. There'd be a certain portion of that cost, $21,115 for migration services to help us move from where we are now to a server that is stable and offers us the chance to provide email in the cloud to our folks. And as Stephanie mentioned, really these email cloud services are just on a facility inside a government cloud with Microsoft that allows our users to reach out and get email from there. The amount budgeted was $50,000. The amount of the project is $50,985.98. So there is about $1,000 there that exceeds the original capital budgeting for the process. So we would be asking for that. The portion in licensing, as you asked about your previous thing, is there an ongoing cost? This is where we get into what Stephanie is talking about, the subscription-based model of services. Microsoft is making this the way forward for a lot of people. They're doing everything they can to push us in this direction because it's a steady revenue stream for them. Unfortunately, there is about a $25,000 cost in licensing for just these email services. And there is a $5,000 licensing fee for just the backing up of everything that's in the cloud to get us a copy of it here so we can assure that no matter what happens in the cloud, we can continue to restore our operations and do business. Michael has already put in the 24 budget $40,000, which would exceed the amount that we would need for these licensing fees. And that's in the 2024 budget and in the 2025 and 26 projected budget already. There's a line item for that monies. Where we are kind of finding ourselves is that we would probably have to let these outside agencies in the past know that they have gotten these email services from us essentially just as a service the county provided to them. It wasn't a cost attached to it. Going forward, it looks like it would run roughly $95 a year per user. So we'd probably reach out to those agencies and ask them to participate with that funding in a similar fashion to they do right now, where the phone system, where we send a quarterly bill out to those agencies that have our phones. The Road Commission, for example, they pay our cost for what the cost of the service is to provide to them. We would probably ask for the same type of situation with the email service. If the Road Commission needs 12 email addresses, that cost would come at about $95 a person to us. We would ask them to cover the cost of that. In exchange, we would cover the underlying costs of the service and keeping it running for them, but we would ask that they participate at that level.
So the idea that I can go buy Microsoft, install it on a computer and own it and not have to pay a subscription fee for it is pretty much gone, that everything is being pushed.
You can, however, what they're
subscription-based.
doing is raising the cost up to the point where it's almost the same as the subscription. So they are effectively doing that so they can say that they offer those services and you can still purchase them, but it's almost as expensive as an ongoing subscription.
Okay.
And this is an area, unfortunately, that we are seeing in a lot of different technology things. As Stephanie mentioned, we are moving to this model and we have to figure out how we're going to address it budgetarily going forward.
Okay, and with, you had mentioned $21,500 for migration, assuming that's all gonna be done behind the scenes?
Yes, so this is CDWG working with us to set up the, oh, sorry, apparently I'm too far away. This is CDWG setting up the initial server in the cloud, helping us set up the server that's here, because we will still have a small server here that acts as a relay between those two things, and that's a one-time cost. They will help our staff too with the initial part of the migration, but in order to keep the costs down, this would be a situation where they would show us how to do 25 or 30 of our users, and then our staff would be responsible for migrating the rest. The cost for them to do all of that work would be significantly higher, so this is a more cost-effective method.
So we're going to go department by department, or?
Yeah, we'll probably pick just a group of 20 to 30 users that are spread across the organization, so we can kind of see how that affects everybody, and we'll migrate those folks first. Ensure that there aren't any issues with that, and if there are any issues, we would identify what they are and then move forward with Elijah, our network administrator, would move forward with the rest of the rollout on our time, essentially. And if we ran into trouble, we could reach out to the vendor and, have them assist with any problems we might encounter with. But really, if they migrate all 265 users, they're going to charge us more for doing that service. So if we can do it on our own after we get through the initial stages with them, it becomes cheaper.
Seamless to the users, they're not going to know what's going on. Email's going to work just like normal, not going to need to input new data into the system.
No,
into a computer.
we don't anticipate large changes that will be visible to the user.
Okay, that's a lot of technology and a lot of expense, Matt. You're costing us money, but it sounds like it's stuff that we need to do. So-
Unfortunately, it's just the nature of operations. I would love to go back to a world where I didn't have 100 emails a day, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. And I don't know how we would all, well, we probably would all have a lot more time for other things, but I don't know how we would operate anymore without it.
Yeah, well, we've noticed the ongoing issues with the email server, so that definitely needs to be taken care of. So appreciate your attention to this and your education on the board. Additional comments from commissioners?
I just got a question. So we moved to the cloud, so what will the annual fee be?
The annual fee that's broken down there, we have $25,381 will be our annual yearly licensing. And then there is a $4,489 cost involved with just the services to take all the information that's in the cloud and make it backed up on our current servers here, so that in the event of some kind of an outage or a problem there, we could restore that information to continue to let our users operate.
Yeah, and that's what problem, everybody's running the same thing. They want everybody to move to the cloud.
It is, and
so
it's a
an annual
long-term.
fee.
We discussed it at MyGMIS, which is the organization of folks that do kind of our work for other counties and agencies. And, there's probably 30% of the counties have already done it. 30% of the counties are kind of in some sort of a process to move there, and the other 30 haven't pulled the trigger yet. And it is an area that we're all trying to reconcile with, is this model where we used to buy a thing, we would have it for 5 to 10 years, like Stephanie mentioned, and then we would have gotten all the use out of that and we would move on. It's just not being delivered that way by these companies anymore, and we're unfortunately going to have to adapt to that going forward, because there isn't, in a lot of cases, especially with someone like Microsoft, there's not a lot of other options out there. It's what everybody uses to do business. We could look at other alternatives. Frankly, some of them are not that much more cost effective, and they require retraining our staff on how to do large portions of their job, which is also difficult as well.
Additional questions? Hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached proposal from CDWG to migrate the county's existing email infrastructure from Microsoft Exchange 2016 to Microsoft's cloud-based platform.
So moved.
Support, Doster.
Motion by Hatfield, support by Doster, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached proposal from CDW-G to migrate the county's existing email infrastructure from Microsoft's Exchange 2016 to Microsoft's cloud-based platform. Additional discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
Once
Thank you,
again,
Matt.
thank you for your time, and I would also extend the same offer that Stephanie did to the commissioners as well. If any of you have an interest in what we're currently doing across the street in the Titan Center, come and see us, and we'd be happy to set up a time to kind of go through things with you a little bit more. And we can talk to you even if you don't have a particular problem. So we can just generally have a conversation. It is possible.
Hey, let's not jump to conclusions. That'd be totally unusual, so
We promise not to talk about any related issues with anybody else.
There you go. There you go. Thank you, Matt. Congratulations on your promotion as well.
Thank you very much.
Jim McManus, PA 116 application for Jerry Lee Mazurek. Am I saying that right?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
So we have the first and only PA 116 application of the year, which is somewhat ironic, but it came so late. This is for a property in Section 4 of Castleton Township. The property is already zoned agricultural. It is planned as preservation. It's the first application we came in under the new master plan with these designations. And preservation definitely promotes agriculture as its primary use. The property is 100% tillable, so it's really an automatic yes. So Planning Commission reviewed it and made a unanimous recommendation that it be forwarded to you for approval.
Okay. Questions from commissioners?
I know this is over in my area in Castleton Township, and I'm familiar with the family. I'm just curious, though, how many PA 116s are there in the county?
I don't know that off the top of my head, but we do have that information through IT. So Rose has been keeping track of that, and now Ian over the years, so you can check with them for the numbers. Because they rotate in 10-year cycles, so it's always shifting a little bit, but we do have all that information.
Okay.
That is interesting. Because we have done multiples of these throughout the years. I don't know if I'd say 10 a year, but probably 5 to 7 at least, and this is the first one for 2023, huh? Interesting. Additional questions?
How many acres is it, Jim? How many acres is it?
I believe it's 74.
Okay.
And 80 with a house cut out of it.
Okay. Hearing no additional questions, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of farmland and open space preservation, also known as PA 116, application 23-1 for Geraldine Mazurek in Section 4 of Castleton Township.
So moved.
Support. Hatfield.
Motion by Colton, supported by Hatfield, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of farmland and open space preservation, application 23-1 for Geraldine Mazurek in Section 4 of Castleton Township. Additional discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Michael Brown.
Excuse me. Good morning.
See, we have a little laundry list here to go through as well, so.
Yeah, I will try to be efficient. The first item that I have is a request to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached agreement for remonumentation grant administration services with Anderwild LLC, and then to appoint Andrew Hartwick. Andrew was here previously and presented on the grant itself for 2024. Andrew Hartwick, who is the principal of Anderwild LLC, as the grant administrator for Berry County's remonumentation program effective January 1 of 2024. You have a copy of the agreement. I did not provide a black line because significantly the only changes are the dates to this. The fee is the same as it was in a previous year. Again, the only change is the amount and then the clerk who signs it.
This is an annual agreement we sign with them?
This is an annual agreement, yeah.
Okay. Questions for Michael? Okay. The chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached agreement for remonumentation grant administration services with Anderwild LLC and to appoint Andrew Hartwick as grant administrator for Berry County remonumentation program effective January 1st, 2024.
So moved, Campbell.
Support. Hatfield.
Motion by Campbell, support by Hatfield, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to attach agreement for remonumentation grant administration services for Anderwild LLC and to appoint Andrew Hartwick as the grant administrator for Berry County remonumentation program effective January 1st, 2024. Additional discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next.
The next item is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of Budget Amendment 23-B. This is not a comprehensive budget amendment. We will probably present one more budget amendment before the end of the year, which you've heard me comment is comprehensive, looking at all funds, all budgets, expenditures, and revenues. This is more narrowly defined. in its purpose, if you may, although it is significant in its size. What this amendment does at a high level is recognizes the remaining $5,124,108 of ARPA funds as revenue loss in accordance with the ARPA final rule, and then transfers them into the general fund. It also recognizes $1 million in revenue from the MMRMA loss fund, and $1,250,000 in revenue from the umbrella tax fund, and transfers those into the general fund as well. The amendment then transfers $2.25 million from the general fund to the Commission on Aging Facility Construction Fund, and $5.1 million, actually $5,124,108 from the general fund to the Public Safety Facility Construction Fund. And then lastly, transfers $500,000 from Diverted Felons Fund to the Public Safety Facility Construction Fund. The result is that at the end of the year, the Commission on Aging Facility Construction Fund would end the year with revenues totaling $3 million, and the Public Safety Facility Construction Fund will end the year with revenue totaling $5,624,108. So there are three issues, if you may, or three components, if you may, topics to this budget amendment. One, and maybe the most important, is ARPA. When we first started ARPA, the interim final rule provided for a revenue loss category. That revenue loss category allowed for the calculation of revenue loss. Later on, after the board went through the first round of commitments, if you may, of granting ARPA funds, the federal government changed the rules, and the final rule states that you can take one of two options for revenue loss. Local governments can either calculate their revenue loss if they want, or can take a standard $10 million allocation, whichever they choose and whichever might be higher. So for example, a Kent County might have more than a $10 million revenue loss calculation. So they might use the calculation method. In our case, the standard $10 million, and that was the whole intent behind this rule from the federal government, is that it provided that smaller units could take the standard $10 million categorization. So if you'll remember that in 2020, there are two milestones with ARPA funds. In 2024, or by the end of 2024, all funds have to be committed. At this point, the board has committed just over $6 million, if I remember correctly. Sorry, I got off track. Yeah, right here. Has committed $6.8 million of the original $11.9 million that we received in ARPA funds. So there's still $5.1 million left to be committed by the end of 2024. Those funds then have to be spent by the end of 2026. So we're on track to commit and spend $6.8 million by the end of 2026. Again, we've got $6.8 million committed. If you will recall, you approved $1.3 million for a Berry Township water tower project, $14,000 for the Rutland sewer and broadband study, $100,000 for the community food center, $839,000 for the Freeport water supply and tower project, $1 million for the Paul Henry Trail project, $240,000 to the Road Commission for lost revenue, just a little over 2.5 million for the public safety 800 megahertz tower, and then 725,000 in economic impact premium payments, if you may, the one-time payments. Again, total 6.8. You have spent 3.5 million of that 6.8, and again, are on track to, by the end of '26, have that 6.8 spent. So from an ARPA perspective and rules and making sure that those funds don't end up going unspent and have to be returned, of the 11.9, 6.8 million is in good shape. The remaining $5.1 million, I'm proposing, it's just an option, but it's an option that's now available, is to recognize those as lost revenue in accordance with the up to $10 million standard allocation. What we would do is, under the lost revenue allocation, one of the options for spending those are on government services. So recipients can use ARPA funds on government services up to the revenue loss amount, whether that be the standard allowance or the amount calculated. And government services generally include any service traditionally provided by a government, and they list some things, one of those being provision of police, fire, and other public safety services. So effectively what we would do, and what this budget amendment does, is transfers those into the general fund. We will recognize a list of public safety services, and our Sheriff's Department and jail expenditures, budgeted expenditures for 2024 or 2023 is roughly, I've got to get that number. I've got too many numbers going on. 5,640,000. So what we will do is, once the year finishes, we will certify with our auditors that what those public safety expenditures were at the end of the year, and that we use those for revenue loss, and that will unencumber, if you may, that is my numbers right, 5.2 million in ARPA funds. So they, at that point, will have both been committed and spent, and there will no longer be any encumbrance on them. So
That fulfills the requirement for 2024, 2026.
That will fulfill the requirement at that point. You can then take those funds and utilize those as you choose to. They could stay in the general fund and become additional fund balance of 5.4 million. Again, I'm digressing into, if you may, the specific area, but what I'm proposing is that as we've talked about a jail project, and in trying to maybe seed a construction fund and get some momentum, taking those funds and transferring them into a jail construction fund, or a public safety, I guess we've titled it, construction facility fund. And they can then remain there until the board is prepared or has funding to address a jail.
Okay,
Now,
and just to answer one question I heard about this was, the Public Safety Facility Construction Fund is not a lockbox. That, as you said, that if the board decides that we want to allocate all or some of those funds to another project or an additional something else, that those aren't under lock and key specifically titled for a jail or a public safety, they could go to anywhere. We could move that money.
That's correct. Since they're not bond proceeds, and in ARPA's case, since they have been unencumbered, they could be transferred back and used for anything. If we didn't recognize them as having been committed and spent through the offset of public safety expenditures for 2023, then there still would be an encumbrance on them. But we'll have addressed that, so to your point, they could be transferred back.
Okay, so this establishes the $3 million that we wanted to put aside for the COA Building Construction Fund, and it effectively takes care of our ARPA commitments for 2024 and 2026.
Correct.
Puts those funds in a facility safety construction fund, safety facility construction fund, fulfilling those requirements, but it doesn't handicap us with what we can do with those funds necessarily, so.
That's correct.
Additional questions from commissioners?
Yeah, so in the government size, it's gonna look like we've used the money, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct. We will
And they have
have,
no way recourse, because at one time Congress was talking about taking away unspent ARPA money.
They
So,
were.
and so it will fulfill that, right?
yeah, that has sort of gone to, I haven't heard any
haven't
discussion
heard
lately
anything
on
about
that,
lately.
but there was some discussion. But
Yeah.
effectively, by the end of the year, we will have, when I submit our fourth quarter 2023 ARPA report, we should be in a spot to be able to report that we have committed all of our funds and have spent effectively the about eight-ish million of the 11 million. And the remainder will come along when the projects that were previously approved are finished.
Perfect. Additional questions?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Back in January, February, Yankee Springs made a request to this board for use of ARPA funds to complete their water system there. And so are you saying that a project like Yankee Springs, see, that seems to me like kind of the last public project other than our own that should be on the list for possible funding. Everyone else's, well, not everyone, but I suppose, but a number of other projects were very similar to that were funded. So if we put these funds in this public safety, I mean, that technically is not a public safety issue, I guess it is, but those funds could be spent or given to Yankee Springs for this project yet at some point?
Yeah, if the board wants to allocate, I think that it does become a little more complicated dealing with, we'd have to look at the mechanism now that they're general funds with then, for lack of a better term, gifting those to another local unit. Under ARPA, that was the intent, that those would, you could, for lack of a better term, be passed through. You've maybe heard me over time talk about that. We can't give away public dollars. No local unit can. You have to get some consideration for that. We haven't had a situation that I recall when we're typically involved in a project with a local unit. It's through our Board of Public Works, and we're the financing conduit that helps levy and issue bonds. But that's effectively their funds and their project. In this case, it would be general fund dollars that we'd have to figure out how we contract. I guess my recommendation is that if you want to utilize these dollars for projects like you did in the first round, that you do that
Prior
before
to
the end of 2024. You follow that set of rules that we previously did, if that makes sense. If we're recognizing them as revenue loss and taking those encumbrances off, that we then use those funds for purposes relative to Berry County, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Okay. Additional questions?
So in order to take that one step further, if Yankee Springs is still wishing to make this request, they would need to do it prior to us taking action on this.
The board would have to have an agreement that we're willing to consider a second round of ARPA funding for projects. We'd have to put that project notice out to all local units of government for all projects. I don't think we could just specify Yankee Springs Township for that. So we haven't had that discussion at this point, but, you know, I have, talking to Jennifer Heinzman, recommended a couple different opportunities for Yankee Springs to get funding for their water project through other grants and opportunities. And I think I don't want to speak for Jennifer, but I think there was some frustration because there wasn't a lot of cooperation in applying for those grants. That there's water infrastructure programs and dollars out there, but we haven't seemed to get any motion or any movement on that from Yankee Springs Township. So we are trying to help them in other ways possible to connect on those things.
There isn't any way to interpret that their request was just a delayed first request.
There is not.
Okay.
So.
Before we move on or jump in for like Bertram a vote, there are a couple other of moving parts associated with this budget amendment that I want to make clear. So again, ARPA was one of the big ones, and the importance there to me isn't how you utilize the funds. It's that I keep this time frame in front of everybody that of 2024 and 2026. That's going to creep up on us, and I just don't want us to get to the point where we've missed something and then have to return those funds. This is a mechanism with which we can meet that time frame and falls within the final rule. Again, if you want to commit those funds to the jail project or a public safety project, that's up to you. I don't want to kind of get ahead, but that's been discussed, and it's a way to start that project. But to meet the commitment for the COA, there are a couple other transfers that occur, and one is on page 5 under miscellaneous revenue. You'll notice $1 million comes into the general fund. I've talked in the past about the Michigan Municipal Risk Management Authority, MMRMA, and our loss fund. We have about $1.5 million on hand with MMRMA in our member retention fund. And the purpose of that member retention fund is to cover our self-insured retention, so deductibles, and then we, for any claim, liability claim, we're on the hook for the first $75,000. We reinsure so that we don't have anything above $250,000. So think about multiple claims. If we had 3 or 4 or 5, at the point we hit $250,000, we no longer then pay that $75,000 anymore. We've not had that situation, so for just information's sake, our SIR is $75,000. We have a cap of $250,000. Our reported reserves, which is what the insurance company looks at and says, here, based on the claims that you have outstanding, here's what we think you're on the hook for, right now is about $80,000. So $1.5 million is significantly adequate. I've talked in the past, the reason we've done that And maybe first where the funds come from, and those funds have historically come from excess monies that the MMRMA has had returning to member municipalities. Here, the last year, we've used those for general fund purposes, but in the past, we've let them just go into our loss fund, and they've grown over the years. That's your money, if you may, and we could request that. That's what this does, is it requests from MMRMA returning $1 million of that $1.5 million back to Berry County and transferring that, some portion of that to the COA fund and some portion of that to the jail or public safety facility construction fund. So again, I've talked about the purpose of those funds is if we ever had a situation at the jail where we needed to rent beds, where it went down, we could access those funds. The same thing can occur in the Public Safety Construction Fund. The risk is if you choose to, or a future board chooses not to build a jail and take those funds and transfer them somewhere else and use them for something else. We don't have that risk, if you may, covered. But as long as everybody knows that that's what those, or a portion of those funds are for, is to cover that risk, then we're okay. The other transfer that occurs is at the bottom of page 5, and that's $1,250,000. And those are funds in excess of the cap amount in our 100% tax payment fund. So we've talked before, the umbrella tax fund, 100% tax payment fund. The purpose of the 100% tax payment fund is to fund the annual distributions to all taxing units in the county equal to the total of the delinquent real property taxes following the March 1 settlement. So every local unit settles with sends out tax bills, collects taxes. There are those that are returned delinquent or unpaid. They come to the local treasurer. The treasurer says, okay, here's what you billed for, here's what you collected, here's what's left delinquent. We're going to give you the money to make you whole, and the county treasurer takes the responsibility of then collecting those delinquencies. For collecting those delinquencies, there's penalties, fees, and interest that come along with that. That builds up in the 100% tax payment fund and builds up a balance. Over time, we built that up so that we could be self-revolving, meaning that the treasurer didn't have to go to the bank and go through the process of borrowing the money that's necessary to make all the local units whole, and then paying the interest back and all that. We're self-revolving. We have a policy that dictates how we determine that self-revolving. I won't get into that. We followed that policy, and I do that calculation every year. Right now, that calculation lends us that we're about $1.5 million above what's necessary to remain fully revolving in the delinquent tax fund. We have gotten to that point from time to time over years, and have utilized those funds. We have a policy that recognizes how those funds can be used. In general, that policy, and I'm going quickly, if you want me to get more specific about something, please, I've got the deal, stop me, but that policy says that effectively those funds can't be used for ongoing operational costs. They're one-time capital type items. What we have used those funds for, if you'll recall, we use $500,000 a year to pay down our unfunded accrued liability with MERS. We've defined that as not an ongoing cost because it is additional payments that we don't have to make. If we stopped making those, we would not It's effectively like paying additional principal on a mortgage. You don't have to do it, but we have felt it's prudent to get that debt, if you made, paid down. So we continue. This takes that $1.5 million out of the 100% tax payment fund and then transfers it on into the Commission on Aging construction fund to get them to their $3 million.
Okay.
And then the last piece to that is it also utilizes $500,000 out of the diverted felons fund to fund balance. That would be located on page 10, which is also going to the Public Safety Facility Construction Fund. So in the end, the Public Safety Construction Facility ends up with, oh, I can tell you here, I got too many numbers. $5,624,108, and the COA Building Construction Fund ends up with $3 million. I apologize, I've gone quickly. There's a lot of moving parts there, trying to deal with audit rules, local policies, federal government, interim and final rules, and then hopefully none of this is necessarily completely foreign or new. We've talked a bit about, and I tried to hit points to refresh memories about where some of these funds are, and we could continue to leave things. The only one I do have the biggest concern about is ARPA, that we don't, that one has a deadline that if we don't meet, we will lose those. Doesn't matter what we use them for, that's really up to you, but that we don't miss that. The other funds could remain where they're at. MMRMA could stay where it's at. I'm not trying to talk my way out of this, if you may, budget amendment, but to be very candid, 100% tax payment fund could stay where it's at. And those are our funds, whether we deal with them today or next year, the year after. I just felt a little bit like we've talked about some of these issues, and unless you see it, it's fuzzy numbers, right? Trying to figure, it's in my head, but trying to get it in front of you, so I'll stop at that point and say, okay, answer questions.
I like the plan.
I think he's looking out for all of our best interests with this, as far as with the ARPA money and all that. We need to.
I like the plan, I like the vision, I like that you're evaluating some of these funds with the over expenses in it and moving them into a location where they can be allocated where needed, especially in that Public Safety Facility Construction Fund. Again, it's not a lockbox, but it's an area that we can move some of this around and we can use it as needed. So, like I said, I appreciate your work on this and putting together a plan for this. So, thank you. Additional questions?
I do have a question on the Public Facilities Fund, kind of for the jail. So you said these have to be expended by the end of 2026. But what if we don't have a jail project by the end of 2026?
Yeah, so because we will recognize that $5.1 million that remains in ARPA funds as revenue loss, specifically public safety, the provision of public safety services, not to confuse with the public safety facility. What we'll do is, with the auditors, we'll say these funds were used to support the sheriff's department and jail staff and fringe benefit expenditures for 2024 or 2023. That will unencumber the funds, so they will not need to be spent, committed. They'll have effectively been committed and spent for those purposes.
Okay.
So whether we spend them this year or 20 years from now, it doesn't matter.
Great question. So those funds now The other 6 million that you've committed prior to the final rule are okay. They've been committed. They just now will need to be spent. And those projects are on their way to meet that 2026, end of 2026 deadline. So.
Okay.
And the deadline for designating the place for the ARPA funds is the last day of December of this year then?
No, designation is the last day of December of 2024.
Oh, okay.
So you have through 2024 to commit those.
Okay.
Okay. The chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of Budget Amendment 23-B.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Smelker, support by Colton, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of Budget Amendment 23-B.
Still got a few more.
Additional discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Noted. The motion is approved. Berry County Conservation Easement Board, reappointment.
Yeah, sorry, let me get, sorry,
I've got the motion in front of me if you want me to read it.
I need you to, because I've misplaced.
Okay.
Well,
We have a couple reappointments. The first one being to recommend, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to reappoint Joan Bossard Schroeder to serve as the Berry County Conservation Easement Board as conservation interest for a term that begins January 1st, 2024 and ends December 31st, 2026. Someone like to make that motion?
Support Campbell.
Motion by Hatfield, support by Campbell, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to reappoint Joan Bossard Schroeder to serve as the Berry County Conservation Easement Board as a conservation interest for a term that begins January 1st, 2024 and ends December 31st, 2026. For a description of action, which you have in your packet, the Conservation Easement Board is an 8-member board with 3-year terms, except for county commissioners and township designee. The conservation interest position was advertised, and Ms. Bossard Schroeder was the only application. She initially withdrew her application, is now asked to have that application reinstated. I think we've interviewed Joan in the past as well, and she was a passionate member of that board. So, Bruce, any input on that?
Yeah, she was thinking about not doing it again, and then she reconsidered, and we were all very happy that she did. She's a very big asset to the board.
No, she's done a good job on that, so. Questions or discussion? Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is approved. Next up, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners reappointment of Jennifer DeWitt to serve on the Berry County Commission on Aging Board for a 3-year term that begins on 1/1/24 and expires 12/31/26.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Colton, support by Hatfield, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners to reappoint the reappointment of Jennifer DeWitt to serve on the Berry County Commission on Aging Board for a 3-year term that begins on 1/1/24 and expires on 12/31/26. Commission on Aging Board is a 13-member board with staggered 3-year terms, except for county commissioners who serves a 1-year term. There are 4 terms that expire on 12/31/23. One of the 4 members with an expiring term has applied to serve another term. Jennifer DeWitt is the only incumbent to reapply. Her appointment is requested. Mr. Colton, any input on that?
She's a tremendous asset to the board. Right now, she's the president, so.
Oh, she's the
We
president.
need her.
Okay. Additional comment or discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. One more. The chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to reappoint the following members to serve on the Berry County Community Corrections Advisory Board. David H. Tripp, Criminal Defense Attorney Representative, Karen Ferrier, Business Community Representative, and to appoint Emily Gary, Workforce Investment Board Representative, Greg Garn, Probation Representative, and Amanda Matthews, Service Area Representative for 3-year terms that begin on 1/1/24 and expire on 12/31/26. Michael, anything you want to add to that?
These are just reappointments of folks to the Community Corrections Advisory Board.
John, any input?
So moved.
Okay.
Support.
Motion by Smelker, support by Getty, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to reappoint the following members to serve on the Berry County Community Corrections Advisory Board. David H. Tripp, Criminal Defense Attorney Representative, Karen Ferrier, Business Community Representative, and to appoint Emily Gary, Workforce Investment Board Representative, Greg Garn, Probation Representative, and Amanda Matthews, Service Area Representative for 3-year terms that begin on 1/1/24 and expire on 12/31/26. Additional discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioners, before we wrap up, we have some appointments to make. Let's start with number 1 with our interviews for the Community Corrections Advisory Board. We had 2 very good applications. Cynthia Norton was the first one to interview with an extensive background in community corrections. Formerly from Michigan, moved to Arizona, back in Michigan. I know all of you have had a chance to hear from Gary several times over the past couple of years as well. So you know Gary well, and he has been local his whole life and is obviously a community advocate as well. So what are the wishes of the board if someone would like to make a motion or make a nomination?
I would move to appoint Cynthia Norton.
I support that.
Okay. Motion by Doster, support by Hatfield, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to appoint Cynthia Norton to serve on the Berry County Community Corrections Advisory Board in a Citizens at Large position for a 3-year term that begins on 1/1/24 and expires 12/31/26. Discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Cynthia Norton is our appointee. Commission on Aging, we had 3 positions available and 3 good candidates. Michelle Deitz, Emily Gary, and Kimberly Miller, who wasn't here today, but we had interviewed previously. So I would entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Hatfield, support by Carlton for the appointments of Michelle Deutsch, Emily Gary, Kimberly Deitz. Michelle Deitz, Emily Gary, Kimberly Miller to serve on the Berry County Commission on Aging Board for 3-year terms that begins on 1/1/24 and expires 12/31/26. Additional discussion? 3 very good candidates.
Absolutely.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Lastly, appointment representatives and Solid Waste Oversight Committee. I don't think we could ask for 2 better candidates to serve on that board, both with passion and experience for that. So the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to appoint Tom Mawson and William Nelson to serve on the Berry County Solid Waste Oversight Committee as general public representatives for 3-year terms that begin on 11/1/23 and expire on 10/31/26.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Hatfield, support by Smelker, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to appoint Tom Mawson and William Nelson to serve on the Berry County Solid Waste Oversight Committee as general public representatives for 3-year terms that begin on 11/1/23 and expire on 10/31/26. Additional discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Some really excellent candidates. I am excited for the people that we're working with and on those boards. I think with what's happening, especially with solid waste, materials management plan, that gives us a lot, and some really strong candidates for the COA board as well. So we appreciate all of you for that. Limited public comment. At this time, anybody wishing to address the board may do so for up to 3 minutes. Going once. Going twice. Commissioner comments. Commissioner Tunison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's been a great meeting today. I think we had some great people show up today. That was wonderful. So, just one thing. This year is going to be a busy, busy year with all the election cycles. But we have 3 very valuable renewals coming for our community as far as Commission on Aging, Transit, 911, and they're all vital to Berry County, every one of them. And what people need to take away from it is that the services that they all provide to people is tremendous, and the people that are involved with it are great people. And they are renewals, that's the thing. You know, everybody's saying don't want more taxes, but remember one thing, they are renewals. So I wanted to stress that point.
Thank you. Commissioner Campbell.
I have no comments.
Commissioner Hatfield.
Nothing, sir.
Commissioner Doster.
Nothing further?
Commissioner Colton.
No.
Commissioner Getty. Nothing. Commissioner Smelker.
I'm good. Thank you.
Believe it or not, I don't have anything to say either.
Everybody's.
Thank you for attending a long meeting today. Enjoy the beautiful weather.